Hello and welcome to Therapy Business School. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. For those who don't know me, my name is James Taylor. I'm a counsellor, a hypnotherapist, a life coach and a hypnotherapy supervisor. With my own private practice, I work online with clients, and this channel is to help those in the wellbeing space be better at what you do. And that's either by giving you some tools, some tips, some book recommendations, some kit recommendations. Now, this episode is about 10 ways to give your clients homework. Now, on my last episode, I'll put a little card in the corner. On my last episode, when I was speaking about this, it was more, do you think or do you give your clients homework? And I've had a few mixed reviews, some yes, some no, some in between. This one is about if you would like to give your clients homework, here are 10 tips or ideas to do so. So let's get into it. Now, before we get started, I should say these tips would work for counsellors, for therapists, for life coaches, for hypnotherapists, basically anyone in the wellbeing space who is in some kind of helping capacity. These kind of tips will be fantastic. And I'm going to go through 10 of them. Stick around to number 10 because I'm going to give a demo of one of them in person, alright? So I think you'll find that beneficial. But as we go through the list, I'll expand on them a bit more. So here is number 1. When you're working with your clients, when the session is coming to an end and you are possibly coming up with the idea of them doing some homework, ask them to go down the deep end with their own thoughts in between the sessions. So this can be really, really powerful, where it's not a case of the therapeutic work is only happening in the session. You're encouraging it to happen outside of the session and the client with their own autonomy to do so. So encourage your clients to go down the deep end with their own thoughts and process what's being said in the session outside of the session. So that's number 1. Number 2, ask the client if they feel they're able to implement a behaviour or an action outside of the therapy room. So let's say the client was talking about confidence or a lack of confidence, and we're working on this, and the client says something that, well, maybe I can't say that, I suppose. Well, that's an ideal thing to encourage the client. You know that thing that you were talking about just then where you could say it? See if you can arrange a scenario where you do say that thing. Now, I'm just speaking off the top of my head. Here's an example. And these are all fictitious, so I'm not referring to any clients that I've had. Let's say a client doesn't like saying what they really think. Okay? If someone asks them something, you just blurt out an answer. Well, an easy bit of work or homework for a client would be, okay, go to a cafe, and when you're sitting there and there's the menu, for instance, or a coffee shop or whatever it might be, when the person comes over, even if you know what you want, and the person says, are you ready to place an order? Say to the person, the waiter or waitress, can you just give me a few more minutes? Even if they already know. And it's just to get them used to not having to react straight away. Such a simple little thing like that can really help. So encourage the client to do an action or a behaviour. Sometimes it's a little bit of both. Alright, so that's number 2. Number 3, get the client or encourage the client to journal out their thoughts. Now, some of these, they're in no particular order of priority, this list. So you can get them to do the first one, which was to think about something and process it outside of the session. And then number 3 is to journal out their own thoughts. That can be incredibly powerful, but encourage the client to expand. So we're not talking about a brief journal entry, we're talking about a more in-depth journal entry. Now they can choose to bring that journal entry to the next session. So they can say, this is what I wrote down and this is what I was thinking. It gives a fantastic area to explore with the client's own thoughts. So that's number 3. Number 4, this is a variation on number 3. So instead of the client writing something out, get them to record a voice note on their phone. And it can be that no one else is going to hear it, but that can be really powerful because if they then play it back to themselves, They're hearing themselves say something in their voice. And that's quite powerful when a client verbalizes something, because then they hear what they're saying. All right. So that could be another alternative for number 4. Get them to record a voice note of themselves on the mobile phone. Okay. Number 5, encourage the client to possibly develop a mantra or an affirmation. Now, there's a way of doing affirmations, and I'll probably save that for another video. Now, a mantra is something that they're going to say to themselves, something that becomes their internal dialogue or lesson or internal voice that says something for them. Now, you can encourage a client to develop one or create one, either inside of the session or outside of the session. So let's say, for instance, you're working with a client and the client says something like, I can do this. I'm not a loser. I'm a winner. I am a winner. You can potentially leap on that comment or bank it till later on. But I like to strike while the iron's hot, to be fair. And you can be saying to the client, that way you said, I'm a winner. How would it be if you develop that into a mantra for yourself? That's a regular thing you say to yourself. How would that be? See what they say. Now, they can also do one of the alternative ones where they can record that as a voice note on their phone. They can also write that in their journal. They can also think about being a winner. See how these things are interchangeable? So that can be an awesome one. Encourage the client to develop their mantra or their affirmation that they create for themselves. It's not you giving them one, it's them creating one for themselves, and you can encourage that. All right, so that's that one. Number 6. This one is coming from the world of hypnotherapy. There was a hypnotherapist called Milton Erickson, and he was a genius, to be honest. I mean, I'm a big fan of his work. But one of his things that he spoke about when he was working with clients was a thing called My Friend John. And what he would say to the client, I've got a friend called John, and John was saying this, this, and this, and it's a bit similar to what you're going through. And what John did was, he did this, this, and this helped. Now, that is really powerful, using the My Friend John technique, because the client isn't listening to advice that you're giving to them. They're listening to about a tale about someone else, about your friend John or Joan or whatever name you wanted to use. So number 6 is to think about, could you use the My Friend John? Now, this can be done in many ways. So you could actually say, My Friend John. Or you could say, well, other clients who had a similar thing to yourself, what things that they've done in the past has been X, Y, and Z. Or they started doing affirmations, or they set the alarm an hour earlier, or they started the journal and found it really benefited them. So you can incorporate that with number 6 into the My Friend John approach to help your client. Okay, that's that one. Number 7. Number 7 is a variation on the My Friend John, where you actually recommend the client gets a certain book, or book, depending on where you're from, or watch a certain video that you can send to them. So if there's a certain video that you think, that actually rings a chord with me, and I think it might help the client, you can send your client that video link, or you can send them a book recommendation. And because of the learning that you will have done, there'll be some books that are quite academic, that maybe you think that might be a bit too heavy for a lay person to read. But here's another one where it explains it in a much more user-friendly way. So you can recommend a book or a video. All right, so that's number 7. Number 8. This one is homework that you can give to a client, where you ask them, if this wasn't happening to you, imagine this wasn't happening to you at all, but it was happening to your best friend or a close friend, and they came to you and they asked you for help, what advice would you give them? Now remember, it's not happening to you, it's happening to them, and they really need your help. What advice would you give them? And go quiet. It's amazing how much the client will know what to say if their friend had this particular scenario. It's so powerful. But for some reason, and if I ever figure out why, I'm going to become a millionaire, because a lot of people doubt they have the knowledge themselves. But when you tweak it and change the dynamic, and they were to explain to a friend of theirs, they're able to give that advice, that information, Well, that means it was in there all the time. You've just explored it a different way, so it can be uncovered a different way and delivered a different way. The powerful thing about this is the client then hears themselves saying it. All right. Now you can either do that in the session, or you can ask them to do it outside of the session, or journal it out. Maybe they're writing a letter to their friend. All right. So that's that one. Number 9, inspired by the writing a letter to a friend. This is a powerful one as well, and it's to get the client to write a letter to their future selves. Now this is big. This is really big. Now you can ask the client, would you want it to be a year from now that the version of you is then reading the letter? Or is it 10 years from now? What would it be? And in the letter, it might be what the client is prepared to do to get past this situation that their future version of themselves will be proud of. So you're putting some restrictions on the content of the letter. It's not a letter where the client is writing about the things they're coming to see you with and about how the feelings they may have at the moment. It might be, I'm going to get past this. I'm going to keep on turning up for therapy. I'm going to keep on with the mindfulness. I'm going to keep up with the studying. I'm going to keep on with looking after myself. I'm going to do this for the future version of me. Right? So writing a letter to their future selves, incredibly powerful. That's number 9. Now, number 10, this is a written task that you might have to demonstrate in the session. And all you need is a piece of A4 paper because you're going to draw something out. Now, the way it works is you have 3 columns. You have a be, a do, and a have column. And you ask the client to come up with 10 things in each column that they want to be, that they want to do, and that they want to have. Now, you get the clients to do this on yellow post-it notes because they don't think about the order of priority. They just get the thoughts down. What are the 10 things they want to be, do, and have? And then ask them to rejig the order from the B column. So the order of importance. Maybe the first one isn't somewhere at the bottom, so they need to rejig it. Okay? When they've done that, they go on to the do column and do the same thing, rejig the order, and then the have column. Now, all these exercises that I'm recommending, I've done myself, on myself, so I know that they work. Now, the be, do, and have, this one was a strange one. When I did my list, I was convinced I knew what was the top one of my do. Right? Because when I did this, I wasn't a therapist. I was in my previous career. I was a detective in the police. And my doing was to leave the police to become a therapist. Right? And I thought that's definitely the top of my list. But actually, it wasn't. Because when I did my list, I realised before I can become a therapist, I have to get qualified. So I have to do my studying first of all, so that's got to go up the list. So you can approach this a few ways and you can explain this to your clients. You can either do it just have them out there, or you can put them in order of priority, or you can put them in order of what needs to come first before the next one. All right? So there's 10 things or ideas for homework for your clients. Now, I'm always a big fan of, as well as talking the talk, of walking the walk. So I'd also recommend you go through these exercises yourself so you know how they feel. This is always a big one because then you can talk with some knowledge. I've done this myself and it worked for me, and maybe it might work for you too. And that can really resonate with the client because then you're not some lofty person sitting on a cloud all wise and knowledgeable like some Jedi master. You're just a person who's helping them with their stuff, and you're just a few steps ahead of them. And if they build up that trust with you, and as they do that, they think, well, okay, well, if you've done it and it's worked and you're telling me it's worked, then I trust you that it might help me too. And you can encourage and support this. Now, if this kind of thing interests you, let me know, because as I was doing the practice and the rehearsal for this video, it occurred to me this might make a great little mini course or a little ebook of 50 ideas or something like that to give to your clients for homework. So if this is of interest to you, let me know in the comments. All right. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. Please remember to do the like, the share, and the subscribe. That really helps the channel. And if you have any thoughts yourself, put them in the comments too. All right. I'll see you on the next episode. This is James from Therapy Business School. Bye bye.